I'm Amanda from Integrative Healing with Amanda Butler. I combine energy healing with archetypal and depth psychological perspectives to facilitate healing, integration, and deeper connection with the divine within. In this video, we'll be looking at self-love from an archetypal perspective through the myth of Eros and Psyche and doing a clearing to facilitate greater self-love. I use spiritual response therapy and quantum speed therapy as my primary energy healing modalities. More information about this is available on my website, but just to let you know a little bit about them, these modalities use source energy along with a pendulum and series of charts to clear negative programming, discordant energies, and other blocks to health, happiness, and spiritual growth. So, the myth of Eros and Psyche is very ancient, dating back to the 2nd century AD. It tells the story of a beautiful princess named Psyche who became the wife of Eros, the god of love, though she didn't know this at the time because she was forbidden to look upon him. However, her jealous sisters convinced her that her unknown husband was a terrible monster and that she had to kill him in order to save her own life. So, with this perspective in mind, one night Psyche took a lamp and a knife and went to where her husband was sleeping. But when she looked at him, she didn't see a monster. She saw the most beautiful and charming of all the gods, Eros, the god of love. And as she leaned forward to look more closely, a drop of oil fell from her lamp. Eros awoke, and he was upset that Psyche had disobeyed him, and he flew out the window and away, saying that he would never see her again. And so Psyche was very upset, very despondent, and she tried to throw herself into the river. But the river god set her safely on the bank, where she met with the god Pan, the god of the countryside. And he encouraged her to seek out Eros and win him back. So Psyche decided to look for Eros at the home of his mother, Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Aphrodite gave Psyche a series of miserable, seemingly impossible tasks to complete. For the first 3 of these tasks, unseen forces came to Psyche's aid, and she completed them quite easily. For the 4th task, Aphrodite ordered Psyche to go down to the underworld and get a box of beauty from Persephone, the wife of Hades. Psyche received directions on how to get to the underworld and back, and the most crucial and important of these directions was to not open the box, whatever she did. So, Psyche followed the directions and met with Persephone, collected the box of beauty, and returned again to the earthly realm. However, Psyche felt certain that Eros would be unable to resist her if she was anointed with the divine beauty from the box, so she opened the box, but when she did so, she fell into a deep, death-like sleep. And so things looked pretty bad at that moment, but however, this seeming failure paradoxically brought her victory because Eros then returned to wake her from her sleep. They were then married, and Psyche took her place on Olympus with the gods. And so what does this story teach us about self-love? Professor of depth psychology Christine Downing said that this story shows how the soul's journey to self is motivated by love of another for whom one does what one couldn't quite do on one's own. Psyche, of course, began her journey to her own divinity to simply get her divine lover back, but she became the most divine version of herself in addition to winning her love back. We also see in this story how Psyche held to her own inner truth. It would be easy to see her continuing to try and get her lover Eros back as maybe kind of being pathetic or being unable to let go of a failed relationship. But in this instance, she showed loyalty to the inner law, which can be seen as faith. And she held to what was true for her and ended up being victorious, even though it was a hard journey. So, holding on to this own inner truth, in addition to that, making choices in accordance with that own inner truth, even if those choices went against what she was told she needed to do to be successful, such as not opening the box. Additionally, I see opening the box as an act of radical self-love, where Psyche stood up for herself, claimed her divinity, and said she was done trying to earn love by completing all of these miserable, horrible tasks. And so then going back to this idea of doing something for another what one couldn't quite do for oneself, how do we make that transition to love of self as the motivator for our journey? This clearing is something that we can use to assist with that. And so first we want to prep to work, and that is kind of asking permission of your soul to do this healing work. And let's see where we get with that. Okay, so starting with SRT, a modality that was created by Robert Detzler. He was a unity minister. It has 32 charts that we can use to clear various negative programming, discordant energies, things like that. And right now, starting with a chart about clearing past lives. So let's see what we get there. All right, so clearing any past life energies, any past life programming that needs to be cleared, that maybe is creating a block to self-love, facilitate greater self-love, greater connection with that divine presence within, where we are 100% love, where we're always loved and always one with the love of the divine, because we are an expression of divine love. So clearing that out, clearing any and all of those past lives. Okay, seeing where we go next. Where do we go next? So over to chart 11, which is about clearing any soul energy programming that needs to be cleared, clearing any genetic soul coding. Just like the body has DNA, the soul also has DNA. So clearing the genetic code of the soul to bring in more room for that greater experience of self-love, of feeling worth it just for oneself, worth loving. Clearing infinite levels before thought, before we incarnate into this life experience. There's the idea that we are a thought in the mind of the divine. There's a thought of what we will be like in this life. So clearing these infinite levels before thought, before we even were a thought in the mind of the divine. Clearing any of that to create a greater experience of self-love. Now going to chart 17, fine-tuning. Making some small adjustments with what we've already done. And in this, we're clearing right now for greater emotional responsibility. When we have that, greater self-love, that it it can create maybe a greater responsibility to treat ourselves differently or to interact with the world differently. So, creating room to have that greater emotional responsibility of treating oneself with one love, of acting from this place of greater self love. So, making room for that. So clearing any additional past lives that need to be cleared. Um, when we make this transition to greater self-love, it can be like stepping into a brand new universe. It's a brand new experience of that's very different than maybe the life we've lived before. So clearing any past lives that would stop us from stepping fully into that greater experience of self-love, that would stop us from maybe having that experience of ourselves as divine and of ourselves as divine love. So going now to chart 24, it's called Rebirth Conscious Mind, and it has to do with various vows that people might take that can block them or prevent them from experiencing things that they want to experience. So let's see what we get here. Okay. So, clearing any and all vows to abdicate personal power. And these can be vows that we make maybe in a past life where we were joining a religious order, a mystery school, something like that. We have to abdicate our own personal power and follow the program of the order or the group or whatever group we're joining. And so, just clearing any of those vows, or even anything from this life as well, where, I mean, anything can become a vow like, oh, well, I'll never do that again. If we had some experience where we did something and we didn't feel like it went very well, I'll never do that again. Or even this idea of maybe I'm so unlovable that I don't deserve to be empowered. Any of these kind of vows, whether in this life or in a past life, clearing any of these vows to abdicate personal power so that you really feel empowered to act from this place of self-love, to interact with the world differently, to treat yourself differently, to hold fast to your own inner truth rather than maybe doing what would be expected of you by your family, your culture, your religion, any organizations or groups that you're a part of, so that you're able to trust yourself within and connect more deeply with the divine within and hold to that inner law, that loyalty to the inner law of the divine within, rather than giving away power to other groups or things like that. Being able to trust yourself, trust the divine within you, and feel empowered from that place. So on to chart 27, called Learning is Fun. And learning can be fun, especially if we are doing it in the form of a story. I really like myths for that purpose. Mythology kind of provides an explanation or an experience of these different archetypal patterns, these patterns that we play out in our lives, and can help us learn to do something differently, can help us understand the patterns that we're experiencing and act from a more empowered place. And so what comes up on this chart is called learning is a continuous process. And it's true that we're never done learning on this spiritual journey. We're always progressing, we're always learning more. There's always more that we can experience and grow from, and there's always room to love ourselves a little bit more. So that journey of self-love is a continuous process. There's always more to learn and more to experience. Okay. On to chart number 29. It's called Final Blessing. And this is about really bringing in the energy of feeling good, feeling blessed, feeling that oneness with the divine. Let's see what we get here. And so just clearing anything, any infinity programs, anything where it feels where you feel kind of stuck with things have always been this certain way and it's indefinitely, infinitely always going to be this certain way, where it feels like, you're living out this loop of, going from trying to make progress and making a little bit of progress, but not really, then getting blocked or stopping somewhere and having to go back to the start. Just clearing anything where you might feel like infinitely stuck is what I feel this means in this context. So clearing all of that. And now clearing any hidden vows that can block you from a greater experience of self-love. So anything maybe that wasn't on the other chart about rebirth conscious mind, any vows that maybe are so old that the soul has forgotten about them, anything hidden, placed in shadow, anything hidden that needs to be cleared, clearing all of that. Throughout all bodies, all minds, all layers, all levels, all space, all time, all dimension, and all realities and beyond. All right, so I'm getting the wrap-up signal for SRT. Moving on to our other modality, QST. QST is for quantum speed therapy. It was created by Alexandra Dobages of Spiritual Healing Therapy. If you want to check out her work on her website, it's really amazing, spiritualhealingtherapy.com. And let's see what Spirit has for us with QST. This is a modality that has a series of 4 charts that incorporate light language to bring in these quantum energies as a companion modality to other things like SRT, to kind of bring in that quantum energy, that beautiful light language to facilitate greater and deeper healing. So let's see where we start with this. Okay, chart number 1, quantum speed. And the item that comes up is learn. So creating a deeper experience of learning, facilitating greater and easier learning for you to learn different ways in which to love yourself, different ways that the divine loves you, to experience that divine love of your soul, of your higher self, of the divine within you, learning how to experience that, understanding the ways that you feel loved by the divine, understanding the ways that you can perhaps show love to yourself and receive love from yourself. And staying now on this chart, the item that comes up is facilitate. So facilitate is clearing the way for you to act on this knowledge, this learning that's going to come in for you about loving yourself, receiving love from your divine self, facilitating that experience of greater self-love for you. Moving on to chart 2, quantum integration. And so the item that comes up is complete. And feeling that oneness with the divine within yourself, that completeness within yourself, that merger with the divine within you, can really help you feel complete. Feeling the oneness with the love of your divine soul can facilitate this feeling of greater wholeness, greater completion. In depth psychology, sort of the divine within us is kind of referred to as the self with a capital S. And that's what the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung referred to it as in his work, that kind of he saw the self as the God within us. And I believe that his concept of the self is the same as the idea of a higher self that is often talked about in spiritual circles. And so if we're one with the divine within us, we're already complete. We don't need to go looking for someone or something else to complete us. And if we're complete, if we have that self-love, then we can come to the other people in our lives with a glass that is full and not be expecting them to fill our empty glass for us. And that can create better relationships with those around us, whether it's a partner, a lover, family members, friends, anyone really. So bringing in that feeling of completeness. Okay. And so staying on this chart 2, quantum integration, duplicate is the item that comes up. And the feeling that comes up around this for me is like the idea of the divine twin. The divine twin within us, the divine self within us that exists alongside and integrated with our human existence. So feeling like, again, that integration with the divine within us. And also feeling like we don't have to go and duplicate our efforts in seeking love from other people, that we can just find the love within us. Because the divine within us will always be there, even if someone we love is not there. And so we don't have to duplicate our efforts searching for love outside of us. It's already there within us, if that makes any sense. Moving on to chart 3 now, which is called Quantum Seal. And this one, the item that comes up is called assimilating. So kind of along the lines of learning and facilitating. Once we learn something, we can really assimilate that knowledge and that information into our experience by living from that knowledge. So if I love myself more deeply, perhaps I treat myself better by getting more sleep at night, and so that I feel better, rather than staying up late when I don't really need to. So treating myself better from that place of self-love. And that's what I kind of mean by assimilating in this instance. And also, this could have the meaning of not needing to assimilate yourself with society's expectations, the expectations of those around you, not having to kind of give up your own individuality to assimilate and be like those around you, which is sometimes hard to do. And sometimes when we love ourselves more deeply, it can mean not conforming to those expectations of those around us, or what is considered normal in our culture and that sort of thing. So assimilating knowledge and information and feeling free of the need to assimilate to what those around you expect of you and that sort of thing. Okay, so going back again to chart 3 to see what else is there for us. Receiving is the item that comes up. So just clearing any blocks to receiving love from yourself and from the divine. Any other blocks to receiving generally that need to be cleared, just doing a good clearing of any and all blocks to receiving. And on now to chart 4, quantum energies. And the item that comes up is Tree of Life. And the image that tends to come to me pretty often when this chart comes up is sort of this beautiful, big, beautiful tree with this beautiful glowing fruit made of white light. And it's about being able to reach out and take from that tree the fruit that is truly yours by divine right, that is the best, that is all of the best that the divine has for you. And so being able to reach out and receive that self-love and that love of the divine. It's all there for you on the tree of life, and you can reach out and receive it and accept it into your experience. So clearing the way for that to happen, for you to reach out and receive what is yours. Okay. And so I'm getting the wrap-up signal for QST. So just finalizing all of the energies of this method, grounding this in so that you can integrate and receive this healing, integrate these energies into your experience, anchor locking and sealing this throughout your incarnation and experience. Grounding this in, anchoring it in and locking it in. Okay, and so that's a wrap. And so after a clearing, you want to drink lots of water, maybe more water than you would normally drink. And just be aware that, as with any form of energy work, some purging symptoms might come up, maybe some tiredness, some emotional symptoms like crying or other emotions coming up. So just not worrying about it if any of that does happen, that it's likely from this clearing. And so I truly hope that this clearing has been a blessing to you and will help you integrate greater self-love in your life and have a deeper experience of self-love. And if you would like to go deeper, you can visit my website to book an hour-long clearing about self-love or about any other area of concern to you. And for more information about the myth of Eros and Psyche, there's a really beautiful book called Eros and Psyche by a Jungian analyst called Erich Neumann that has a beautiful retelling and commentary on the myth. And I hope you've enjoyed this clearing, and I will talk to you again soon. Have a blessed day.